When COVID-19 pandemic shut businesses across the globe, one of the industries to be most severely affected was hospitality. The closure of bars and clubs meant that millions of people across the world instantly lost their ability to earn money and support themselves, especially those who were already at most financial risk, younger people and the lower income bracket. As a brand intrinsically linked to the nightlife, Jägermeister felt compelled to act, so developed Save the Night. Today, I'm joined by Wolfgang Müller, Global CMO, Tim Jörg, Head of Global Brand Management at Jägermeister, and Daisy Dominenghi, Global Client MD at Engine, to discuss Save the Night and how this idea grew from a desire to do something altruistic during the pandemic to a rich storytelling platform which brought the Jägermeister brand purpose to life. So, first question, tell me about Save the Night. How did it come about and why did you feel compelled to help the community during this pandemic?
Well, first of all, I think it was obvious after a little time of, watching what's happening outside. I think everybody was surprised, but relatively quickly we saw that, there are many people that really suffer from the lockdowns and everything. And we really looked at it and said, okay, there's a need for us to do something, and that's how it all started.
What did you feel from a Jägermeister perspective, from a brand perspective? How does that connect with what's needed to build the community, the nightlife community? What is it about the Jägermeister brand that made you compelled to act?
Jägermeister, the brand, is very much embedded in nightlife culture, and obviously, we realized relatively quickly that this is not only about our business, but about a lot of people that were part of the success of Jägermeister over the course of the last couple of years. People that really contribute to the nightlife, to the excitement of nightlife, and we saw that there are many people that really do need support, and there are many people that are forgotten somehow because nobody was there for them, and it's like, hey, we have to give back to these guys, to our partners out there, to make sure to overcome that really difficult situation. And that's how it all started. And we said, this is not about a campaign, this is not about awareness or whatever, this is just to give back to the community that made a huge impact to the success of the brand, and that's how it all started, I would say. Right, Tim?
Yes, it was absolutely about supporting the community, and our first thought was how can we do it in the most authentic way. And one thing is to just simply do it financially, of course, and this is what we did. But then, of course, what's missing for all those creatives and those who work at night is the platforms to perform, and that was the thought we had to really make sure they can keep going and keep doing what they do, and bring their creativity out there, because I think that's a super crucial part for this for our community to really be able to perform and bring their skills on stage.
And I think that working with you guys, I think what became apparent is it wasn't one thing. It wasn't enough to just do one thing. There were so many different strands to this, from the hospitality industry, who needed, in a lot of cases, urgent funding, to the people who work in that nightlife, who also needed funding, and other people who, let's not forget our consumers, who'd gone from having those moments of togetherness in bars to all of a sudden being stuck at home. And what was interesting, they were finding new ways to evolve and, connect and things, and making sure that we still had a role in that, and making sure that we still could deliver on our mission, which is to give these consumers and the people who work in nightlife the best nights of your life. And I think what was really great here was that the campaign itself actually now consists of kind of 6 different elements, from the Meister drop-ins, which we'll go into talk about a bit more later, but also Meister classes, donations, micro funding to artists who potentially weren't right to sort of do a Meister drop-in or class, but also people who we worked with authentically already and needed to support during this time, plus sort of driving limited edition products that could help fund and send more money back into nightlife. as well as, you know, supporting those clubs like who and initiatives like United We Stream, which were in existence, and giving them a extended platform and voice through our brand. So it was really great to kind of think about how it couldn't just be one thing, but more things, and how we could play a role in kind of that wider platform development.
It's really interesting hearing you all talk about the kind of I suppose the authenticity. And Wolfgang, you even sort of mentioned you didn't really start as a mindset as sort of campaign first. It started out, it was from a genuine sort of I suppose a genuine start point that ran true with your purpose. I'd love to hear more about that, but I also think for my second question, what I'd really like to understand is why you think it's important for brands, especially when it comes to storytelling, to begin with that sort of authentic sense of self and that purpose.
I think at the very end, there was an idea, and there was a kind of a target group need, and that made it all. That was the starting point for everything. You know, that's kind of, and that's how it evolved. So when you look at it now, like how it you know, what we added to that, I think everybody jumped on that, and we always say, we as a brand, we, like all that stuff with purpose right now, we see more like you as a brand, you have to be authentic and real, and we felt at that time it was really time to give back and to show behavior that's beyond just profits, and really make sure that you support that people that build a brand from outside. And I think that was the initial starting point for that, and it was just the right thing to do. And I think without overthinking it, or without testing it and put stuff through consumer research, and it was just do it because we believed in it, and a lot of people that started the journey believed in it as well, and that's how it took off. And then the interesting part of that was that at the very end it was like in over 50 countries, and I think that was another litmus test that the whole idea really resonated with a lot of people worldwide, and that was the beauty of that. So just but I think as a brand, if you don't have that in your DNA, to be active, to support, to do that. Beyond just profit, I think that was the time, and obviously we were able to pull it off in no time.
And I think it's right to say sort of that the consumers nowadays, if you aren't authentic and it's not coming from an authentic place, especially in a crisis like COVID, they're very quick to call you out as a brand. And I think we saw that happen sort of when, BrewDog sort of launched the hand sanitizers, and very quickly people were like, is this for commercial gain? And we needed to make sure, therefore, that anything we did built on things we were already doing as a brand. I think, from the guys will talk about Night Embassy, it's something that they were already finding ways to bring creative freedom to people in nightlife, where potentially venues and things were being closed to shut through gentrification. So, this was just elevating what was already being done, but being done for the good of nightlife as opposed for commercial gain. And I think that's really, really important.
Where we started was to talk to our network. That was the very starting point. Like we called those people we work with, and we just asked, like, what's going on? How are you? How are you affected? And what do you need now? And that was basically the starting point to come up with all these initiatives we finally had.
I think Daisy, you mentioned BrewDog, and I think it's interesting. I think off the back of COVID, we've seen a lot of brands obviously move into the kind of the space of kind of I suppose giving back to society, and brands sort of trying to act more on their purpose. But I think, as you said, Daisy, it's not as easy as it probably looks, and it's quite a fine line that you have to tread. How would you think Save the Night differed from other brands, like you said, like BrewDog, for example, but other brands? How would you say Save the Night differed compared to those other brands that have decided to act post-COVID?
It is not a campaign. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And it's really, as Wolfgang mentioned in the very beginning, it was a matter of heart to us to really help those who need help immediately. And that's how it started. So it was really built bottom up, so to say, and not kind of like typical thinking in terms of creating the next big campaign and creating awareness for the brand. That was not the driver. And I think that's one difference. And I think, of course, many brands did the same and had the same thoughts. And I think producing like hand sanitizer, I personally think it's a really good thing to do and to support that, and to also help wherever you can, like and whatever industry you're in and whatever you're able to do. It's always good then to do it. So I don't try to just capitalize it and just do it for your own benefits or so. Then it's really good to help in such a situation. And I personally, I'm grateful for every brand out there that stood up and supported.
Yeah, just wanted to build off of that, because I think it's not on us to judge what other brands did, because I think it was a lot trial and error during that time, which was super interesting, and for marketeers as well, because it was a fine line of is that really something that people need and want, or is that something that a brand tries to push into the audience or whatever. And I think a lot of brands did great things. Some worked, some didn't work, and I think at the very end, I think every brand has to come up with something that's really good for them. And with Save the Night, we found a platform that is really working for us, because it continues just the work we did beforehand, but we just switched over to crisis mode and said, you know what, hey, here's a support in combination with giving a platform, in combination with give entertainment to the young target group. And I think that made the whole program a 360 program for us, and everybody could benefit, for that, and that was it. And I think the beauty of that is we're a relatively small organization, so I think decision making was quick. Buy-in from senior management was quick, so it's like we could immediately get into action mode and then try out things, and that's, I think, one of the beauties of that. And that's maybe that differs from, compared to other organizations that are bigger and slower, but again, I think any brand has to find their own solution for that, and it's interesting to see what happened.
I think the other side for me was that what we did is kind of very quickly, because I think we saw a lot of brands reacting, but what was important was to start to see what the consumers were doing naturally. So there's also the audience at home, and those people, we were seeing that there were people having masterclasses, and people were starting to sort of get together on Zoom, Hangouts, Skype type thing. But what was really interesting was to think about how we could connect to those people in the channels they already were, rather than create new sort of journeys or new platforms for them to interact in. So we basically, with Save the Night, I think with one element of it, which was the virtual parties, we realised that people were having these parties but probably didn't have the same sort of, the singer, the musician, all of that kind of things that's so inherent with nightlife happening really naturally anymore. So I think that's where we started to go, okay, what could we do in that space that's natural to what they're already doing but build upon it? And I think that was a really sort of key move that I think differentiates what we did with Save the Night to other brands. Rather than force things and ask people to sort of interact with the brand on their terms, we were basically providing a platform where people could interact with it on their terms with their groups of friends in the way they wanted to, which I think was a really great progression for the brand.
I think that's really interesting, that the Daisy, the fact that you talk about, it's almost, if you think of headwinds and tailwinds, it sounds like you weren't trying to swim uphill and kind of ask your community to do something they would never normally do. You were simply helping your community swim in the direction they were already going, giving them more useful tools in enhancing their experience, which is a really interesting way of treating your community, which I think sounds like a fascinating part of this entire story.
Yeah, and giving a lot of freedom to the creative people out there. Because like what we didn't do, kind of put a brand filter on everything they do. Obviously, of course, there's corporate social responsibility and all that stuff. Yes, of course, marketing codex, we did that, but at the very end, like we let them do, and then we obviously also used technology to our advantage. For example, like the whole tip function. That at the very end, the artists could do some extra money with that, and they loved it. So that was kind of a driver for them as well. To hey, I use the platform to get something out of it, and we as a brand, we just framed it and let the people do, and I think that was highly appreciated.
It's that kind of, how do you tread that line of brand role and involvement, but also getting out of the way enough to allow your community to just enjoy themselves and not necessarily intrusively inserting yourself into their world, which I think is a really fine line to tread. But I think in execution, it was brilliantly done. I'm just going to move on to the next next question. We've talked a lot about the positives of the work that you created, but I'd like to just get a bit real now, and I think I'd like your honest views on what were some of the challenges in developing and executing this campaign in such a short time frame. I mean, you talked about being nimble. It's very easy to talk about being agile as an organization, but we all know how difficult it can be. I'd love to hear a bit more about what those challenges were.
The biggest challenge was, I would say, the new way of working. So, of course, everybody being at home was new to us. Of course, we are used to have video conferences before, but that was quite new. And then the pace, of course. And also, from our point of view, it is such an international platform that we have, and so many teams were involved, kind of like, of course, like in our headquarters, all marketing teams heavily involved in that campaign. But then also in our markets, and Wolfgang mentioned before, like we had more than 50 markets being involved in our activities, and we basically only gave them a platform, and they had to fill it with life. And I think that was a big challenge to bring everyone together, to keep the information flowing. We were also not used to work in such a pace from remote only. And the beauty was everybody was stood fully behind what we do, and was highly motivated on both ends to make it happen. And so, and it was all based on trial and error. This is what Wolfgang said before. We didn't know where it will go. And we've built this, the first version, I would say, of the website. Which was already more than a dummy in 24 hours. So everybody had the opportunity to experience how it will look like. And so many people bought in this idea, and also in the other ideas as well. So we had a massive microfunding campaign that we did together with artists, and they performed on more than 700 different projects and stuff. So there were so many things happening at the same time, and to me, looking back, the biggest challenge was having all these video calls all day long. I don't know, Daisy, what do you say?
Oh, I love a video call. I love Zoom. I think, yeah, for me, I think it was, as you say, executing it at speed. But at the same time, I think that has its benefits, because as Wolfgang says earlier, because it was purpose-led, everyone was heading in the same direction. The goodwill was there to just try and say something as a brand that meant something, was meaningful. And so I think it just meant that, you kind of, in reflection, there was a lot of Zoom calls and stuff, but everyone was willing to put in the hours because they believed in it, and they believed in the cause, and they believed at they knew what the potential of this platform had to do to support nightlife. So I think as a team, we just all kind of got in and got on together. There will always be moments of tension throughout, especially when you're running at speed. But because we have that kind of open relationship and trust, we can pick up the phone to each other very easily, go over the problems and then get it sorted, and then have a good ice cold shot, as we had a few at the end, to celebrate, you know, the good as things were happening. And it's really important when you're moving at speed to celebrate the good and the things that you're achieving. And for us, I think seeing more than anything the response our influencers, our meisters were getting from the public and from their communities, and you know, the amazement. We have some amazing artists on this platform, you know, globally, sort of really sort of resonating artists, from musicians to artists to sort of DJs to creators to people, photographers. There are some really incredible people on here, and a lot of the time, you know, some of these guys who probably not usually be accessible to their audience were all of a sudden accessible for a one-on-one Zoom. Like, that was incredible for them. And so just seeing the response and the support these guys got was incredible.
One challenge was I call it alertness, you know, just to of course we were in action mode and everything, and we worked remote and all that, but just to really understand what's going on. And what, as you said earlier, it was a fine line during that time for brands to communicate and to act out there, but to have to be alert and say what's happening, is it what you do, is that right? How is it perceived? Are you really do the right thing or not? I think that was something that was really interesting. That was new to us, definitely, and that's definitely something we want to keep after that. And it's kind of like, you know, just be out there, just understand understand what's going on, consumer behaviors, everything, you know. And I think that's something we learned from Save the Night for the future as well. This brand alertness, you know, just to make sure that you are out there, and you do not fight for campaigns or whatever thing. And I think that's the one thing, and then always staying true to yourself, what you are as a brand. And I at the very end, it was interesting, it was kind of a bullshit test, you know, for brands, you know, whether you really care and do the right thing, that you have followers and you really care about your clients, your followers, your everything, or are you just interested in profit? And I think that was a big, and I think that's where a lot of consumers now see the difference between those brands who really care and do things, and the other ones who are just there to make money out of them. And I think that's something that's kind of what I like, but this is kind of natural and cool.
It's really interesting, Wolfgang. Here you talk about the learnings, you know, as you said, that kind of that genuine learning how to really respond to consumers in that very, you know, kind of real-time way, really understanding your community. I'd love to talk a bit about now, finally, taking on all of those learnings. What next for Save the Night? What's the next chapter?
Right now, discussing exactly that. We see Save the Night as a platform that was perfect to react in that situation a couple of months ago, but still we see nightlife is under threat as never before. Even though in many countries now lockdowns are not anymore as strict as before, yet still there happened so much. There was so much damage that already happened, and even now those bars, creatives, bartenders, clubs, they are all under threat. They can't perform, they can't really open their venues, they can only to a certain point. So the need out there is there. Jägermeister is a brand of the night, so to say. It's our brand mission to bring the best nights to our consumers and to really support that. So I think we're all looking right now how to continue within this new situation, or new normal, as people used to say. I think there's still such a strong need from brands to support those creatives and artists and people who make the nightlife to what it is. And we don't want to lose all this creativity. And I think it's obvious that we want to continue saving the night, most likely in a slightly different way. It's not yet final what we will do, but yeah, we'll keep you posted.